Alright, so I'd first like to apologize that I'm using a white fabric on a white table. Hopefully this is going to show up good enough for you. There's not much I can do about it. Can't change the color of my table. And I only use this white. It's easy to use to make a pattern with. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, as I described before, is we're going to figure out the pleating. Here are the pleats of it. So we're going to figure this out starting with our return. The return is a 3.5 inch return. With a 3.5 inch return, we want 4 inches. That gives you a 1/2 inch sewing allowance. What I'm going to go ahead to do is I'm going to mark this 4 inches on my fabric, both the bottom and the top. I'm going to draw a line. That is the return right there. Now, as I also had stated, each pleat takes 9 inches, and we have 3 pleats in this valance. Not that you can see the valance right now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mark this 9 inches. 9, 18, and 27 inches. And then I'm going to do it also on the bottom here. 9, 18, and 27. Okay, now we're going to begin pleating it, even before we shape it out. This is going to give us the width, because we haven't talked about the width of the valance. The width on this valance happens to be 48 inches, but if you need it less, it's going to be easy enough to adjust it less, or if you need it bigger, we can also adjust it. But our target right now is going to be a 48 inch, and just hold with me a little bit longer, and I'll explain it a little bit more in a second. Okay, I've got some pins. Let's see if I can get you up here a little closer so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. Maybe, maybe not. Excuse my hands. Okay. Now we're going to pleat it. Here's my mark. Right there. Matter of fact, I'm going to put a little snip in here. Maybe you'll be able to see a little bit more. And actually, just for the this video, I am going to go ahead and put a line in here. Maybe it'll just show up a little bit better as I'm doing this video. Because what I'm looking right now through my camera, I can't even tell if you can see that. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. That's my return. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pleat this. I'm going to take about a third, about 3 inches of it, because remember it's 9 inches, as I said previously, it's 3, 6, and 9 inches. So I'm taking about a third, which is about 3 inches. I'm going to bring it up. I'm bringing it to the first, right to the return. I'm going to show you how I have it in a second. So that 9 inches just turned to 3 inches. From that pencil mark to there is 3 inches. So you want to fold it in to the 3 inches. And you're going to stick a pin in it. Now I'm going to do that again. That's my first one. I'm going to take 3 inches from that notch over 3 inches. I'm going to grab it with my fingers And I'm going to bring it over to this line. And you want to make sure you're keeping it even with the top right here. Okay, 3 and 6. My last one. I'm coming over here. Now, how can I tell that I'm using 3 inches? Well, these are right next to each other. But if you're not sure, you can just keep measuring. And after a while, you just get a feel for it. Okay, so now I've made my pleats. See how easy that was? I'm going to stick some pins in here just to keep it straight for a minute. So I can pick it up, okay? So there are my pleats, like that. And to look on the back of it, each one of these are touching each other. I don't know if you can see that, but they're actually right next to each fold is right next to each other. They're not overlapping, they're just right next to each other. So that's that part. Now here it comes to where we want the face of it. How big we want it. Now we have the pleats. This is going to be the return. It's going to be wrapped around. So I'm going to get rid of that right away. What do I have left over? I've got 32.5 inches before this pink stuff starts. What does that mean? 32.5 inches. That means I can make up to a 67-inch valance on this. I'm sorry, 65. It's been a long day. 65-inch valance. Little sewing allowance there, so I could really make up to about 64 inches. But I don't need that. I was going to make a 48-inch. So from here, taking this in consideration that your return's off, I need 24 inches of it, plus a ½ inch sewing allowance. So really what I need is 24.5 inches. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to mark 24.5 inches, because this is half of the valance. And I'm going to show you which half. Stick with me, because this is going to make sense. Half of my valance, from here to here. So this valance, from half of this valance from here to here, it's a 48-inch wide valance, that's 24 inches. Plus I need a ½ inch sewing allowance, so when I sew my bell on. So keep that in mind. This is going to be the easiest way for you to learn how to do it. Okay, so I marked it 24.5 inches. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to come over from this end. And you don't have to do it this way. Actually, I have a ruler on the other side I could be using. But it is 8 5/8 of an inch from here. This is just going to be a little bit more accurate. 8 5/8. Okay, so from here to this edge, not including my return, 24.5 inches to make double that's 49 inches, and a ½ inch sewing allowance on each side of it. makes this 48 when it's finished. Okay. So here's what we're dealing with right now. This is what we have. That's 48 inches from this edge right here, plus the return. Now we're going to go ahead and shape it. Now we're going to remove the pins. And by the way, at this point, if you wanted to, you can kind of press these pleats in just to give it some memory, so when you put it back together, you don't have to reinvent that. Now we're going to shape it. This particular valance goes from 14 inches from top to bottom to 18 inches top to bottom. And that's pretty much so what we're going to do here. There's a 4-inch differential. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark this. You have 14 inches. That means you need, let me just tilt this a little bit over this way, a little bit. Okay. So what that means, you see that? Yep, okay. We are going to mark this off at 15 inches. You need a 1/2 inch allowance on the top, 1/2 inch on the bottom. This is where our return is. I've already cut this piece of fabric at 19 inches. So that'd make an 18-inch finished off piece. So now I'm going to take this, I call this my shaping string. I'm going to arch this. And all you want to do is find an arch that you like on it. And I like to keep, my personal preference is not to come to a point, so I like the return part of it flat. So if you can see that here. Bring this down just a little bit more. Okay. So you just want to pick a shape that you like. Going by your mark over here as your short point. Now we're just going to mark it off. This isn't perfect, but when I trim it, I'll make it perfect. Okay, now we'll see what we got here. And you can see, I can see where all my lines were before. Now you're going to notice something you may not have noticed before, is that this line lines up now with right in here, where the contrast with peekaboo. Okay, so there's your arch part of it. Hopefully you can see that pretty good. When I put it on the actual fabric, you'll probably be able to tell it better. Alright, now, we only need 1/2 part of this pattern, because when we cut our fabric, we're going to cut 2 pieces of fabric. We're going to face them face to face. We're going to put this on, so we're making a left and a right. So you only have to make one half of this. So putting that to the side, now we have to make the bell. The bell, of course, is this piece right here, and that's a separate piece. And we're going to go ahead and make that bell. Now, on our original pattern here that we started with, we made this piece 15 inches. So I cut another piece that's 15 inches. So it butts right in there. We're going to readjust it afterwards. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on my table. I'm going to get rid of this little fuzzy stuff on the end of it. Okay, now the bottom part of it, we're going to make 15 inches. So what I'm going to do, using plenty of this fabric, I'm just going to fold up. Doesn't matter how much you fold up, because you're just going to cut away. But take a good chunk of it and fold it in half. I want the bottom part where it flares out 15 inches to start with. Fold it in half, that makes it 7.5 inches. I'm going to put a mark there. The top part of it, I want 6 inches. It's folded in half, it's going to be 3. Now I'm going to connect the dots. Now there's going to be a little adjustment to it. It's worn your nail. But this is the approximate. That's what your bell looks like. Now we have to make an adjustment. Because even though you cut this the same in length, it's not going to stay that way. Because the bell's on an angle, it's going to become longer. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this, just like we were going to sew it, and we're going to put it on like that. I'm going to pin it so I can show you. Just like you were sewing it. So this is what your bell would look like. But you notice it's going to come up over the top. So we're going to cut away a little bit of that now. But keep in mind, you're going to also have to cut a little bit away later too, after you make the valance. So the first thing I'm going to do is, here is the top of my valance right here. I'm going to put a mark on here. And that's how much more I have to cut off to keep it straight at the top. I'm going to fold it in half. And I'm going to measure that. It is a 1/2 inch. So that means I'm going to cut off a 1/2 inch off the top. And of course I got to fold it in half. Okay. So now when we put it up here against this, we're going to have it even. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this on our fabric. Now I went ahead and I cut 2 pieces of fabric. Thank God, at least now you're going to be able to see the fabric. And again, I'm dealing with the stripe, mainly because I just had it left over, so why not utilize it? And then I have my second piece. And here's the crucial thing about your second piece. Unfortunately, the fabric I'm using can be used either side. But it's important to make sure that you got your face of your fabric here, and then the next piece of face is going to go face down on it. And let's see, this actually has to go over this way. I got to keep my stripes lined up. And if you're using a stripe, you want to make sure you see your stripes are all lined up, because you're making a left and a right, and you want your left and right to look the same. Now we're going to take our fabric and we're going to put it down, keeping in mind of your stripe, especially over to this side of it. If you're going to notice on this valance, nothing skips a beat. I try to keep all these still lined up. As a matter of fact, left and right, you'll notice, if you notice, you just see a little bit of that stripe on that side. You're going to come over here, and it's going to be the same deal on here. You're going to see the same stripes, left or right. And that's because I put my fabric down just this way. So the left and rights always match. If this was a floral fabric, I'd be centering something right in here, the opposite side of where the pleating is. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to line this up. Now for myself, this is just a sample, so I'm not going to be overly picky on it. If it was the customers, I would be. But this is just for you. Now you remember those little notches that I put in? I'm going to put the little notches on this too. Okay. So now I've got my left and right. The next part I'm going to cut is my bell. I'm going to take my next piece. You'll want to center something on your bell, whether it be a design, the blue, whichever one you want. On this particular one, I'm going to take the blue. And I can see my center line still where I folded. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Okay, now you've done that, you're going to go ahead and follow the same steps on your lining. You want to make the exact same cuts using your print that you've just cut out. You're going to use that as your pattern, and you're going to cut the lining the same way. And then you're going to sew your pieces together. I'm going to back the camera up just a little bit more, and we're going to show you what this is going to look like. There's your left side, your right side, and your bell. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pin this. Then I'd be taking it over to the sewing machine. And sewing it, but I'm not going to go that crazy with this video right now. Okay, so that's what that looks like. Then I'm going to flip this one over. I'm going to pin this one. Okay, now it's sewing time. You'd be sewing these down. You'd be sewing your lining. The exact same thing. You're going to notice what happens. Keep this flat, and you got a big old V. We're not going to keep it flat. Now I'm going to take it and come over here, and I'm going to pleat this one end. And I'm going to staple it down so you can see. That's that half. I'm going to come over here to my other half. Do the same thing. It's important to keep the top straight. Normally you wouldn't be stapling it down, you wouldn't even be doing this, but I want to show you what it's going to look like. Okay, now we're going to work on the bell. The bell, you're going to butt these together. And you're going to butt these two fabrics together, both the left and the right. And then you're going to form your bell right here. You want to make sure you got it centered. In this case, I was using this blue stripe as my center. You want to make sure you have it centered. Normally, you'd just be pitting this. I happen to be putting. Now you notice, once you get done with this, you're going to notice you're going to have some left over up on the top. This is always going to happen. You see how this goes over? So after you sew it, you're going to notice that, and what you're going to do is just bring it over the table. Like so, and you're going to trim it off. And that's what this valance looks like. When you're done, it looks like that. Now I've also had several other videos. Please feel free to watch. You can watch. I have so many on sewing different type of valances. This is really no different from any of my other ones. Just keep in mind, you're going to cut your lining the same way that you cut your fabric out, and you're going to pillowcase style it. I do have other videos. The next time I make this valance, if I get a chance, I'll go ahead and show you how to line it and everything. But this is the idea. Now these bells right here can be used on several different things, but at least now you know how to flare it out. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And thank you for watching. And have a good evening or good morning, whichever the case, or afternoon. Thanks now. Bye.